All right, this particular model I learned when I was in my university education courses, and it's called Bloom's Taxonomy, and it's really an evaluation of, well, it helped us write our objectives for our classes. We start from the bottom, okay, so instead of going down, we're going up. So knowledge would be your first level, is the foundation, pretty much. It's the facts, all right? And you want people to remember previously learned material. So I would test my kids on learning a spelling word, or learning a new skill, that I've just taught them in math. Okay, so that would be your understanding. You're defining, describing, identifying, labeling, listing, matching, name, outline, recall, recognize, reproduce, select, and state. Those are all different words that you would use for your objectives. All right, then you would move up, and it's not just that they would list knowledge, but they would actually comprehend it. So that means that they could condense it, or they could describe it, the knowledge, instead of just restating it. Okay, discuss it, distinguish different parts of the knowledge, interpret it, locate it, okay, which is kind of a more research thing. But so they're grasping the meaning. They're grasping the meaning of the material. This is also on there. All right, then you move up for deeper understanding, or deeper grasping. Application. So we're giving knowledge to our SBS students, but we really want them to move into application. Okay? So the verbs would be apply, carry out, construct, demonstrate, operate, produce, or use. So again, writing an objective, you want them to apply their understanding of, apply their understanding of observation when they come to a text. Right? What questions would they use? So they're applying. They realize they need to observe, so they need to who, what, when. They'll start going through the basic questions of observation. That would be applying it. All right? Obviously, when we're doing a Bible lesson, and let's see, Ruth. Let's look at Ruth. Let's ask you about Ruth.
Okay.
So when you did the application, you wanted them to apply something in Ruth. What was your application question, or what did you want them to lead them into for application?
For the final app.
Yes.
Final app was that unlike Judges, Ruth chose a completely different path, a completely righteous path, and that because of her obedience, God blessed it, and then blessed the nation of Israel through it with David, and then blessed the world through it with Jesus, and how just one person's obedience and Boaz's obedience too, how they changed the lineage of their family, that they changed the course where they're going. Yeah, and that we too can, like, no matter what our family situation is or where we come from or the things that we've been brought up in, we can create a legacy after us that's godly and righteous.
Awesome.
Will be different.
Awesome. Yay. So that would be something you would want your students to come into application, that they would bring into application. So we try to do that a lot in SBS. Then you want to move into analysis, which is like actually beyond application, which is analyze, compare, contrast, differentiate. So understand both the content and the structure of the material. So that's really when she was going into teaching Ruth, she had to come to this. She had to be able to analyze what was going on with Ruth to be able to bring the students into the knowledge, comprehension, and application of Ruth. Okay? All right, so as teachers, we need to be up in this part of it. Synthesis. Verbs there are compile, create, develop, generalize, integrate, propose. So formulate new structures from existing knowledge and skills. So it's like the more that Sarah is reading through the Bible, she's able to actually look through how Ruth compared to Judges, Okay, so that would be, it's like you're synthesizing this. I'm sure, I was talking to Sarah Kay from Germany, and she was saying how she was saying, I really love Mark's courses because I've seen so many more themes through it. And I said, okay, what theme have you seen? And she's like, oh, creation. I've seen creation theme throughout. And so she was telling me about the creation theme. So that is a synthesis. That's looking at the bigger picture and kind of pulling all those things out. And then evaluation, which is appraise, assess, criticize, defend, evaluate, justify, support. So that's actually the critical thinking piece for, like, when we look at some of these hard, difficult passages, looking at the context of Scripture and then in light of the context of Scripture. So judge the value of the material. So, like, Paul is talking to, this is like last week, Paul is talking to Timothy about women, but then look at all their other writings about, like, and then think about Corinthians, and then the Colossians and Ephesians, all those different things, but in light of all of them, what's going on, you know? And that's what was also Tom was doing, wonderful. So anyway, these are things that we want to be mindful of. We're not going to get this right away, but as we continue to teach, if we're teaching the Bible, getting our students to a deeper and level that they're understanding that, like Tom, like Mark, they kind of are helping us get deeper and be able to do these things. Okay? They naturally do them. So, any questions, comments? Okay. Now you're going to see that I gave you 2 more handouts here. Since I learned it, they have revised the Bloom taxonomy, and I like it because they use verbs instead of nouns, which means it's more active than passive. Okay, so instead of knowledge at the bottom, now it's remembering. Can the student recall or remember the information? So same kind of verbs that we had before on here. Understanding. Can the student explain ideas or concepts? Okay, I liked this one a lot. Applying. Can the student use information in a new way? Analyzing. Can the student distinguish between different parts? Evaluating. Can the student justify a stand or decision? And creating. Can the student create a new product or a point of view? So from what they've learned, can they do some other, like, outside of the box things? Okay? So it's not quite the same, like synthesis is a little different, it's evaluating, so, but still interesting. And then the last one, which is hard to see on your sheet, sorry about that. It's kind of like putting all those different things together. It talks about cognitive, and I wanted to define that for you, because that's a term that we use a lot in different disciplines. But this is in the educational discipline, but I found a working definition. It's in science, cognition is a set of all mental abilities and processes related to knowledge, attention, memory and working memory, judgment, evaluation, reasoning and computation, problem solving and decision making, comprehension and production of language. All in your head. Okay, it's your processes of thinking. All right, and they're basically in many different contexts. They're in the field. They use the same word in linguistics, anesthesia, neuroscience, psychiatry, psychology, education, philosophy, anthropology, biology, systemics, and computer science. So it's a word that's out there, but we're kind of looking basically at the educational model, obviously. Okay, so in this model, each of the color blocks show an example of learning objective that generally corresponds with each of the various combinations of the cognitive process and knowledge dimensions. So you've got these are all some of the same ones that were in the Bloom's taxonomy, kind of similar words, and then the knowledge dimension is from black and white to abstract, okay? And so that's what's going on. The basic elements students must know to be acquainted with a discipline or solve problems in it. That's the factual. Conceptual, the interrelationships among the basic elements within a larger structure that enable them to function together. Procedural, how to do something, methods of inquiry and criteria for using skills, algorithms, techniques, and methods. And then megacognitive is knowledge of cognition in general, as well as, I can't even read that, awareness of knowledge of one's own cognition. So, and then what they did was they went with the same terms that we've seen, and they kind of gave you like list primary, secondary colors. That's just an example. It's not the thing, but it's so you'd be able to list, recognize, recall, identify, predict, clarify. So those are all the words, and this is used for writing objectives as a teacher. So I'm not going to be having you writing objectives, but it's important to know where you're going for a teacher. And so you do want to have some sort, I'm not going to be analyzing your objectives, but I do want you to think through what's your objective when you're teaching. Okay? What is your objective? That's why we started out with, why are you teaching? Where are we teaching? Okay? And so this is kind of what we're trying to do. These are the bare bones. This is what you're going to get out there when you're studying education pedagogy. You're going to be finding out that people are really focused on the objectives that they are trying to get for the students to learn. So, and different levels of learning, so that they can be thinking critically. One thing that's wonderful about SBS is that we have, it is a wonderful system of learning because we learn how to think critically. We end up learning how to do a lot of these things in a very wonderful way of doing it. So I actually really like it. I think we can always learn on time learning and so on, but I think there's some really great things that we have with the SBS learning style. So, Any questions? I'm just kind of throwing this one out. I don't know it as much, but I just wanted to say.
What's the name of it? Is it just the knowledge and cognitive
It's
dimensions?
from Iowa State University Center for, yeah, it doesn't, it's just a model of education.
Okay.
So it's another model. So, yes,
Okay, so practically,
yes,
we have all of these different ways of measuring where our students are at any given time. And our students are going to be in different areas at any given time.
right.
Would you as a teacher sit down, evaluate where you think they are, and then pick a step that you want them to, you'd love for them to be on the top tier and have perfect knowledge, but you recognize you're probably not going to get them to level jump 5 levels up,
Exactly.
you know?
So you've got to be systematic
Yeah.
in the way that you do that.
I just can't, I feel like people would do this instinctually in their head and not necessarily look at these to be super helpful, but I would want to know how to use these as a tool to actually really be helpful. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So how do you get people to go from an analyzing to an evaluating, or how do you get them to go from one step to the next?
Right. Okay, so that's a good question. Let's just explore it.
Okay.
That's actually the next thing I wanted to look at. What's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the point of this? So, any ideas that come out to you?
How do you get them to go from that point up to the next, to go up to the next level?
Yeah, well, what do you do if one of your people are on all different tiers? That's it, one question. Another question would be, how do you get them to level jump?
Yeah.
I love saying that. Thank you, Matt Scott. But how do you do that? I mean, technically, if they're just listing things, and maybe you know, okay, the next time we get together, if they were just listing things, I need them to recognize something about those lists. So we're going to look at the lists, and then we're going to evaluate and pull this out from them. And the next time we're going to recall.
So what are things that we can do?
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Okay,
Like
there's
ask-
first we're going to have to evaluate them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? First we're going to have to evaluate.
You have to know where they are.
Yes.
So I'm gonna quote Sarah and do, how's level jump?
technically going mad.
Oh.
But I like that. Go ahead.
I'm not telling you. Okay. This is where teaching is hard. Teaching is work.
Sarah, can you think of students in the past that you have seen level jump and what it was that you, is that?
Well, yeah,
what it
that's-
was, right?
That's my struggle is I've seen students grow and I've seen them transform, I've seen them apply to their lives, but I've never like known where they were and,
Right.
and watched that
So the
process.
first
See how
part
they
is knowing where they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is, what we're doing in SPS is a step-by-step, we're teaching them a method, but then they're using that method to go through the words systematically.
Right.
And just doing that helps them to get up here. Okay, so there is a systematic going through the information, but we also, how we do it, like workshops,
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that.
workshops. Yep.
That's kind of an
That's
FCE
right.
principle we talk about.
Mhm.
It's like you go, I mean, at first they kind of like, you do, they watch, you do together, they do, you watch, they do. So it's kind of that whole, but
Right,
then the whole process, you're always evaluating, the process, so you say, okay, this worked, this didn't work.
yeah. Okay, in the beginning of SPS,
Question.
let's
was-
think about the very beginning in the seminar.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 years ago.
They're just so brand new, okay? They're so brand new to everything. Some have never read their Bible, okay? So, what's the first thing we have to do?
Get the basics down.
Share the need.
Pardon?
Share the need.
Sure, a need, there's a need. Because there has to be some motivation, internal motivation. Okay, then what? What's the first things we do in SPS?
Introduce the method.
Okay, we introduce the method?
Yeah, I'd say a simple overview.
Okay, okay, so that's what we do in Titus for sure.
Yeah,
It's not
We
necessary.
don't really do it in SPS all the time.
really.
Yeah. Because because the focus of Titus is to learn to teach the people how to study the Bible. And we're wanting them to learn how to study, but we want them to learn the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a different goal, a little bit of a different goal. So, generally, well, we do some relational things, right, in the beginning. And we give them a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Help me, I can't remember all of them.
I don't know,
Syllabus.
there's so many different ways. I mean, you give them an IBS, you give them a jump drive, you
Yeah.
talk about the rules of
Okay.
the school,
Right.
you have the where did you come from DTS moments. And then you start talking about the importance of studying the Bible, which is the need. And then we start talking about kind of what it's going to look like in our class.
Right, right.
Um,
So there's a syllabus here.
yeah,
I'm just gonna put the syllabus as all those things that you just said.
sure.
Okay?
Then I mean, he does eventually start jumping into the steps
Okay.
of the method.
Okay, so usually the steps of the method.
Would you say that the syllabus and
Oh,
like the briefing you and the steps and method and all of that, would that be kind of fitting into expectation? Like they show you the expectation and then from there they start going into the steps?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Or
yeah, the
is that not
expectation.
really?
I mean, he does lay down his expectations for you, sure.
right,
And hopefully what you're going to start to get out
which
of
are, I mean, it should be both, but
So then is the next step that people start doing it and.
so what do they do?
They start charting or.
Do they start charting right away?
Maybe.
What do you start with?
You start with steps of the method, so then
Yeah.
he's going to teach you the steps of the method.
So that's observation,
So you observe
interpretation,
this for
But then
application.
But then we have 12 steps that we use for our method, that like the Lakeside, Montana steps,
Yeah.
and then you'll teach you one, and then we'll go through it. And you'll have your checker come and talk to you through that process. And then you'll go to the next step, and then you'll do it, and then the checker will come and talk to you, and then we'll talk about those class. And the same all the way through all of them.
Okay, so they have 12 steps. Actually, I think that was from Sean Ellis.
But,
It wasn't before that.
but unfortunately, people think that the 12 steps is the method.
Right,
The
and it's
12
not.
steps is not the method. 12 steps is
Is the steps of SBS
Yeah.
Montana
exactly. So
and Conan.
we've been learning that these are not the same thing. And
No,
people
they're
walk
not.
away thinking they are.
Right. So maybe like on-time learning, what would you do to change?
What would we change?
What would you change? I'm just asking what you think.
I think we're learning well what students can and can't handle in certain times. We definitely don't give them all the steps. I definitely would revamp how we teach the horizontal. I would love to teach horizontal to the SBS next year. Certain things like that they're not going to fully understand right away until you get into bigger books where certain things apply. I wouldn't change a whole lot off the top of my head. I think they do a pretty good job spacing it out nowadays.
Yeah. We had Galatians, that's how we started, and Ron lectured it. I mean, Ron is not verse by verse,
So it's not.
so he lectured it. Now, we all came away with this big, huge picture of God's race. Major. And it was awesome because pretty much the whole SBS, I saw God's race because of that.
Set the stage.
Yeah, he set a stage. So he created a need with that. So,
It'd be
did
so
I.
cool to have him teach that. He did his doctorate on Galatians, but it's always so early in the school year that he can't. That's crazy.
Right. Well, it's just because it changed. We
Yeah.
changed the order. So, kind of the steps of the method. But you could start with the steps of the method by reading the text. So what? Start in Philemon, and you just have them read it and talk about who, or what did you notice in here? And they're going to start saying who, and they're oh, that's great, who, great, and go through all those different things that you're observing, and then you say this is observation. It's a different way.
I like that idea.
We did that when we taught it in Polson.
Yeah.
To the oral
Yes.
communicators.
Right, which I would say, non-SBS place, when you're teaching the Bible, don't do it the same way as SBS.
Yeah.
Because you're just gonna lose your audience, and they're not gonna study their Bible, they're gonna be frustrated, and they're gonna think studying the Bible is for people who are really smart and elite thinkers, and I can't do it. So we have to take it down. Okay. Yeah, okay, so, anyway, that's just an idea, but from on-time learning, I'm thinking that's what you're doing when you're going into level jumping, okay? Because you're just giving them a little bit more information, and they practice it, they do it, you practice it again, you do it, and then you go on, okay? So in interpretation, I would start saying, I just wanted, well, first of all, I would talk about historical background. Hey, did you know that during this time, slaves, there was like more slaves than there were free people in the Roman time? And they had rights, and sometimes it was better to be a slave. But there was also some conditions, and that if a slave ran away, they could be killed. Okay, so those are, you're bringing in historical background. Then I go, okay, so in light of that, what do you think Paul was trying to say to Philemon? And so you're walking through the method without saying this is the method. Okay? But, I'm just offering that to think about. How would you do that? So, to me, it's with level jumping, it's like you're taking what they need to go to the next level, and once you see that they're proficient in it, then you move on. And sometimes they're proficient in it quickly. I mean, observation is something that we all do.
Right.
It's like we live observation all the time. And I use it all the time when I'm overseas, and I'm like, you observe all the time. You observe that when I came in the room, I had white skin, and I don't speak your language. And you have interpreted that I must be from somewhere else, and you are correct. So you can use those things, and it's fun, so anyway. So for me, I guess, for the level jumping, as you call it, I mean, it's like, you were always evaluating, where are they, what do they need to get proficient in, maybe they need to get more proficient in their observation. So let's help them through their observation more. Okay, and then, they've got their observation, but they are like stuck on what's their author meaning, and they're not getting that there's a different time period, a different culture going on, all these different things. So you move into whatever they need. Teachers are all about whatever they need, you get them. So that's where I would say level jumping comes in. Okay, so it's like practice and repetition. When they say if you want retention, you repeat things. And so then you would repeat things in ways that are, maybe they're restating it, but repeating the same observation. When we started, so I would go back to Ukraine, when we were redoing how we started the whole school, we did start with the IMO. Observation, interpretation, application, but we didn't start with the Bible. We started with observation games, and so that they got used to that, and then we took them to a park where they would do observation, but it had a lot of history connected to it, and it was Ukrainian history, and so then we asked them Ukrainian, like, interpretation questions, and we moved into that. And then I wrote a letter. It was really funny. And I pretended that I was writing a letter from Burma, but they didn't know that. And I wrote to Julie, and I told her all about the fruit that she was going to get to eat when she came, and that she will be wearing these skirts called longies, and they, like, be careful, because sometimes, this is surely happens, that if you're in a bathroom and an older woman sees that you don't have it on right, they'll fix it for you. And then at the very end of the letter I said, and I had to have this hand carried out, but I never said where I was, and I just said, I'm excited to see you when you come. And then they read that letter, and they had to figure out, observe what were the things, types of fruit, types of clothing, had to be hand delivered, okay, what does that say? Interpretation, we moved into interpretation. Okay. So, and then we moved into, I can't remember all the things for application, but anyway, you get my picture. We started without the Bible, so that they learned the method without the Bible, and then we moved into how,
That's really clever.
because the Bible has
Mm-hmm.
it's a mystical book in Ukraine, and so we, especially for those who are coming from Christian, like Orthodox or Baptist backgrounds, it's kind of like holy, and of course it would be really precious to them because it was hard to get when they were, during the Soviet Union time. So anyway, so we treated it very carefully, and so when we went to the Bible, where we were like, this is God's word, it's important, and so now we're going to look at it the same way we observed and interpreted and applied outside, we can do it now with this. And so we learned it in that way. So, and that was huge on-time learning. So